Hey, good morning or afternoon or good evening, depending on where you are in the world. Welcome to today's workshop, which is a real-time visibility of your AWS systems and applications. So thanks for joining us today. Before we get started, I'd like to go over a few items so you know how to participate in today's event. We're recording this webinar and we'll be sending out a link to the recording after the workshop. So all attendees are in listen-only mode. However, at any point during the presentation, you can submit a question by typing it into the questions panel of the control panel in the upper right-hand corner. We'll collect these questions and address them during the Q&A session at the end of the presentation. So without further ado, I would like to introduce Honor Gudmer, Cloud and DevOps Consultant at Cloya, and James Mansfield, Solution Architect Lead at Humio. Take it away, Honor.
Thank you very much, Justin. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We are mostly home these days because of coronavirus, so I hope you all enjoyed the webinar today. So before getting to start, I want to introduce myself to you. As Justin mentioned, I'm Onur. Hi. I'm working as a DevOps consultant and AWS Cloud Architect at Cloya, and you can see my social media accounts and email down on the page. You're always welcome to send me an email or send me a message from Twitter or LinkedIn. I'll be more than happy to connect, guys. First of all, let me talk a little bit about Cloya. We are a hands-on consultancy company that creates solutions to move you to the new era. We have more than 30 experienced engineers, and we have offices in London and Istanbul. Our headquarters is here in London. And we also have an office in Istanbul, as I just mentioned. We are working hard to have the partnerships that can help our customers in different areas, which is why we became partners with leading platforms and tools, which I'll show you in a second. So we have many different solutions in DevOps and DevSecOps, cloud, especially AWS and Kubernetes, microservices and software architecture, test automation and big data. We have our customer base from USA, Turkey, and Europe, if you still consider UK as a European country, UK, Germany, Finland, Austria, and Malta. We have training in Tanzania for the modernization of the government, and we have many customers in Dubai as well. Let me tell you about our partnerships a bit. We are an AWS Advanced Consulting Partner with DevOps and Microsoft Workloads Competency and Solution Provider Badge, especially with application modernization. We are one of the 4 nominated partners worldwide from AWS, and which means AWS can fund many application modernization projects on behalf of our customers. We are one of the silver members of Cloud Native Computing Foundation, aka CNCF. We are a certified Kubernetes service provider, and we have partnerships with Zebia Labs, Instana, Rancher, CloudBees, some of you may know it as a Jenkins, Cloudflare, Docker, Sonatype, Tyke, and of course, Humio. And also, let me tell you guys about the story, how we end up being partnered with Humio. Because we used to use Elasticsearch, honestly, for our log needs. And of course, it's a great tool. And when you want to do a search, it's perfectly fine, but also not necessarily for logs. In the short term, you're fine. But in the long term, we have started to feel the pain of storage cost. And we started to look for a new tool that can provide the search efficiently and in real time, of course, with low cost. Long story short, we decided to try Humio, and we loved it. After a short while, we decided to be partners, and we never regretted it, to be honest. Okay, as I told you guys before, Cloya is a hands-on consultancy company. We have customers in different aspects within a range of startups to enterprises. The most significant similarity between customers is their infrastructure, honestly. And of course, some of them are simpler and some of them are more complex than others. Our aim to help our clients to make, or let's say, change their infrastructure to the possible simplicity. so it will be easier for them to manage and maintain. But let's say one of the thing is for sure that the general performance of the system, I mean all the services, applications, and everything. The company has to be aware of any drops in the system-wide performance, because that can be a big clue to an oncoming storm. And what's the point of getting an alert when it's already too late, right? So it's late and you couldn't scale, or your application already went down, and as a result, your customers are not happy, which definitely makes you unhappy. I guess nobody likes that. It's vital to know what's happening in your application, or let's say in your systems or in your devices. You should be aware of the problems right away. Only this way you can prevent a critical issue on your production environment. And we have to know that the logs are the diagnostic outputs of our applications and systems. So if you read them well, you can understand what's going on in there. So let me give you a trick that many people doesn't care about that much. Actually, everyone knows that, but probably many people doesn't care about that much, which is to catch up an issue as soon as possible. And you can do this with listening to your application and system logs in real time. The real time part is important because you have limited amount of time when you have a problem. And having the real time metrics gives you a great advantage on that, because time is probably the only thing that is more very valuable than money. So unlike its competitors, Humio can deliver and let you query the logs in real time. And it also has the capability of analyzing and consolidating everything in real time. When I say real time, you can understand that I'm talking about milliseconds, okay? And also, as we all know, we always have to be prepared for the unknown, because you can never know when an issue may arise. It can be either in the midnight or during a Champions League game, or let's say when you are in a theater. That means Humio can help you with instant alerts and dashboards for you to see the unified view of operational health. Let's say you receive an alert. The first thing you should do is to check your dashboard and see what's going on in the big picture. If you understand what's going on in the big picture, then you will have a chance to dig in the problematic area, which will lead you to the main problem. Of course, it's totally up to you how many alerts and dashboards you want to create and which detail level. You can create many dashboards that show metrics, query results, and many more things in different variety. I think nobody likes to have an issue in the production environment, right? So it's always a nightmare. You have to have a very well designed CI/CD pipeline to avoid any bugs, security issues, and many potential problems. Also, including an automated testing would help you a lot. It's so easy to do an automated testing for your applications and analyze the outputs and logs with Humio. Because many people use many different technologies for pipelines, for security checks or testing, but it's not important which tool you are using. You can always use Humio for all the logs, all the outputs, so you can analyze and create a full visibility of what's going on right before the production. And also, I have to mention about Humio's fair pricing strategy here, which allows you to use Humio even for test environments, which is a massive benefit of using Humio. We have benefited that for many customers, and they gain from it a lot. So the importance of reducing the issue resolution time, let's talk about. I think everyone knows why it matters, right? It directly affects the customer satisfaction, and it directly affects your ability to provide your services, which means your business, which is the most critical thing. because when you have a problem, and if you can't locate the problem right away, it will take time for you to resolve this issue, and which will directly affected by your customer. We always prefer working with Humio in that manner because, first of all, it's way cheaper than the competitors. And also, it can give you the chance to analyze your logs and metrics in real time. I always repeat real time because it's really important. And also notifies you with instant alerts, which you probably cannot have with others. Which I can say definitely we solve that in many times. Humio helps you in any way to reduce your issue resolution time. I can confidently say that it's the best tool we have used so far, which is why we decided to go on partnerships with them. And also, we are talking about log centralization solution, and we are talking about the Humio's benefits. It's obvious that centralized logging is here to make our life easier. Not only does centralized logging provide multiple features that allow us to collect log information efficiently, but it also helps us consolidate, analyze, and view that information quickly and clearly. And let's talk about some benefits here. So you don't have to log into your production environment to access logs every single time. Just consider you need to search a log, and just consider you have 250 servers. How hard is to log into every single one of them to access logs? So it doesn't make sense at all, right? You can easily search all logs from one place. And having it from one place gives you huge advantages, like analyzing and consolidating different types of data, creating alerts based on your rules, creating dashboards, share it with them with other people in your company, which creates the transparency that the company needs. And also, when you start using a centralized logging solution, especially when you start using Humio, you have a huge benefit on your storage, because with this way you can keep your storage needs minimum. I have to mention Humio's index-free database here. As far as I know, Humio is a product that needed by the company of having real-time logs and saving them in the long term. As I just mentioned before, using, let's say, Elasticsearch doesn't make sense at all because of the storage needs. And because of that reason, they decided to prepare a product that fits every needs, like accessing the logs real time, having a smaller storage, and also to have them cheaper. And also, last but not least, it gives you the chance to have a better security because you have a better transparency. Before moving on, let's talk about the Humio's platform in a nutshell. As you know, we have many log shippers in every server or device or from the applications. You may be using Splunk's agent or Elastic's tool or many different tools. Humio says that, okay, my main responsibility is to store, analyze, consolidate logs in one center. And I really like the single responsibility principle, which is why we have the responsibility to pump logs to Humio. But Humio provides us a great feature, like there are many different kinds of log shippers in the market, and Humio supports all of them. So whatever you are using right now, if you decide to migrate to Humio, you can keep on using them. Humio accepts HTTPS, TCP, and UDP ports to receive data. We call this ingest operation, by the way. So you can even write your own log shipper, and you can send your logs to Humio. When Humio does the ingestion, it parses and places the data to a built-in Kafka. Having a built-in Kafka has great advantages. First of all, you don't have to worry about the high availability of the data. Of course, I'm not talking about the installation to an on-prem data center and installing on only one server. Of course, that's not highly available. Let's say you're installing to a free server, then you don't have to consider about Kafka. Of course, it's all about the size of your data, but normally you don't have to worry about it. And digest operation just takes the log from Kafka, and if you have a live query that runs at that time, it directly shows it there. And if any of your alerts needs to be triggered because of this data, you will be directly notified. And in parallel, of course, Humio saves this log to its storage, and it compresses the data up to 20 times based on your hardware for sure, and which also helps the storage a lot. Also, when you do a historic query, of course, Humio goes and uses its storage. And I wanted to show you this, let's say, graph. I really like it, which shows the storage needs for the same amount of data of Humio, Splunk, and Elasticsearch. So for the same amount of data, you see how much storage you need. And in the middle, you see Splunk, and on the right-hand side, you see Elasticsearch. This is what I was talking about, the storage needs. For the short term, when you don't have that much data, you can't see the difference a lot. But when you start getting data and data, you'll see the difference. Your cost of storage goes on sky, and we all know that storage is one of the most expensive things. Okay, before moving to our demos today, I want to tell you about the Humio SaaS account. Of course, you can install Humio to your on-prem data center. You can install your public or private cloud, and also you can use Humio software as a service account. All you need to do is to just browse cloud.humio.com and click on sign in button. And when you click on that, you will see the form as you see on the screen right now on the left-hand side. All you need to do is just type in your name, company, email, and country. With this, you save your profile. And then it will ask you to choose your plan. You can always go with free. It's free account. Go enjoy. Of course, it has many restrictions, but you can give it a go and see the tool. You can play with it, and then you decide if you like it or not. Also, it gives you the chance to try the Pro account for 30 days. All you need to do is to just type a repository name. There's something you need to be cautious about. That repository name has to be globally unique, just like AWS S3 buckets. And I type my new unique log repository here. And one of the best parts is your free trial session, the 30-day, doesn't start when you create your account. When you start sending data, then it starts. So you can enjoy it even today. It will take just 1 minute and you're ready to test. And I'm going to show you 2 demos today. One of them is sending our AWS logs to Humio using CloudTrail. I'm going to use the official integration here. Let me show you. I put the link here. When I click on the link, it goes to official documentation of Humio, and it shows the AWS CloudWatch integration. It explains us here all the details, how it does, and if you are interested in, you can browse here and you can read. I won't go in detail. And it also gives you the CloudFormation template, so you can download and apply it to your account. I'm going to use a Terraform version of it because let's keep it in between us. I prefer Terraform over CloudFormation. Okay, when we apply our Terraform, it will create a CloudTrail. Of course, if you're already using CloudTrail, you don't need that. And that CloudTrail will push all the logs to an S3 bucket, which will be created also Terraform. And also through CloudWatch, we'll use some Lambda functions that will pump logs to Humio. So our log shipper here is an AWS serverless Lambda function. And with the second demo, I'm going to spin up an EC2 server, and we'll try to collect Nginx access logs using FileBit to Humio. And this is the integration page as well. So getting all logs from Nginx. If you're interested, you can see many details, many sample queries here. I'm going back here. And as I just mentioned you before, Humio supports all different log shippers. So as you may know, FileBit is a product of Elastic. So we are going to use FileBit to collect logs and pump to Humio. Okay, so it's demo time. Let's see it in action. First of all, let me show you the Humio account, the SaaS account. As you can see, you can access it by cloud.humio.com. I connected it, I logged in, and as I just showed you in the slide, my new unique log repository is my pro trial. When you log in, it gives you your repositories, and there are some system repos like for the audit and the metrics, and there's a sandbox, which is your personal storage you can use free. And if we go in there, let me show you what are there. At the moment, it's empty, and you have a new tab menu here, which gives us the access to dashboard, alerts, parsers, files, and settings. And let's start executing our Terraform, so we won't need to wait too long. So I'm going to create a plan, and I have to give it some settings. Like I want to give a unique name so I can differentiate from my resources here. And I want to tell which repository I'm going to use. Data space name. I'm going to use Sandbox today. And of course, I have to have an authorization. For this, I have to pass Humio ingest token. And let me show you how we can have it. I go back to my Humio. I'm in Sandbox repository. I click on settings, and on the left-hand side, you see API tokens. When you click on API tokens, you can create new ingest tokens here. When you create an account, Humio creates a default one for you. For the best practices, it's always better to create a specific one. I create a new one called AWS here. So you see it directly creates it, and it hides it from us. And I want to assign a parser for that. I don't have to do that, but I will do that because I know that the logs will be JSON format. That's why I click JSON. And by the way, let me show you the parsers. Humio has many built-in parsers for access logs, audit logs, JSONs, key value pairs, syslogs, anything. But if you have an unstructured data, or if you need a custom structure, you can create your custom parser as well. So I've selected JSON parser, and I copy that ingest token. I go back to my terminal, I paste it, and of course I want to take it out as TF plan. So let's see how it goes. For the ones who don't know about what Terraform is a tool that allows you to create your infrastructure as a code. Let me apply this before going in more detail. Let me show you what it does. It tells me that it will create a CloudTrail, CloudWatch event rules, and all the necessary roles and policies. And I should see some Lambda functions here. Yeah, and some Lambda functions. As I just mentioned before, you can see all of the details from the integration page. And I apply it for now. So when you use an infrastructure as code, like Terraform or CloudFormation, you have many benefits. And before, I remember I told you I prefer Terraform over CloudFormation. It's because, let's say AWS announced a new service at reInvent, and to be able to use it with CloudFormation, you had to wait at least a couple of months. But with Terraform, you can start using right away. That's the thing I like. So it should finish just in a couple of seconds. We are expecting it to create 16 new resources, as it shows here. We don't expect anything to be changed and anything to be destroyed. If I see here, it's already created the rows, S3 bucket, policies, some of the Lambda functions, CloudWatch events. So it's so close to finish. Yep, it's finished. And we can see that apply is complete, 16 resources added, nothing changed, nothing destroyed. So let's check if it's true. I want to go to my AWS account, and I want to check the CloudTrail if it's already there. Yep, as you can see with the name AWS logins, we type that name with our variable in Terraform, and we can see that it will create logs and push it to this S3 bucket, Humio AWS logins CloudTrail. And also we can see that we can see what's going on from the CloudTrail Humio log group. Perfect, fine. Let's go to Lambda so I can show you. Okay, it has created 3 Lambda functions: auto subscriber, backfiller, and ingester. So let me tell you the idea how it pumps logs to Humio. That we actually subscribe all the log groups to that ingester function, okay? And that ingester function's responsibility is to pump all the logs to Humio. So this is actually our log shipper. The auto subscriber just subscribes the newly created log groups in the future to the ingester, and the backfiller has been executed one time only with Terraform to subscribe the already existing log groups to ingester. And honestly, at the moment, I should expect to see something at Humio if everything is fine. So I'm going back to search tab here, and yeah, we start seeing something, which is good. So you can see the parsed fields here, and you can choose the time range. You can choose a fixed time range, which directly goes to the storage, or you can choose a time window, which is a live query. So let's see what's going on in the last 5 minutes, because we just newly created, right? Okay, so we start to get something. So if we click on this one, for instance, let me make it a bit bigger so you can see it better. So actually, this is the log file that CloudTrail sends. This is a proper JSON file, and you can see that the AWS region, which event is happening, and the user agent, blah, blah, all this kind of information. This is the actual message that our log shipper sent. It also has the log inside. And you can see all the parsed events here. You can see they're all parsed and ready to use. You can also see all the parsed events here. You can run again if we see anything new. Yeah, it keeps on coming. And I want to show you that how easy to query. Humio has a great query language, which on the top you can see language syntax. If you click on this, it takes you to the documentation again, and you can see all the details of query language, the structure of a query, the principle, and how can you use it, and all the functions, etc. It has a great documentation. You can benefit. Let's say, let's check if we can see something. Okay, let's use user identity.username. The best part of using the parsed fields here, let's say if you click on one of them, it directly gives you the unique data. Let's say you group by and you see the count here. So it's so easy to do. Of course, when you click on that, it automatically creates us the query. But let's say, let's close this. Let's see user identity dot username. Let's see if we can see my records. We are searching in the last 5 minutes, and yes, I have something. Let's double check if it's correct. Yeah, you see, this is my record. And you can write many queries here, as I just showed you on the documentation. But I also want to show you how easy to create, let's say, a graph. What I want to do right now is to create a time chart. And let's create the chart using the user identity type. Okay, so we should see all the different types here. You see assumed rows, AWS service, and IAM user logins. It just automatically created me a graph, time graph, which is perfect. And I'll show you something as exciting as this one to create this as a dashboard widget. So at the moment, we don't have any dashboard because we haven't created anything yet. So I want to create a new dashboard. Let's call it AWS. And actually, I'm creating a widget for it. Let's call it type chart. And boom, we have a dashboard. Of course, it's so empty right now, but we can make it richer. And also, let's create another time chart. Let's this time use user identity dot username. So we should be able to see the users. Thanks God, I'm the only one working right now in the company, so no one else is working. So let's create this as a new widget, user chart. We have another one. Okay, go back. And I want to show you something more interesting than that. By the way, you might be asking how I know all these charts. You can see some of the widgets here. And also, if you click on event list widget, you can see all the documentation, all the types, how can you use it. It's all here documented. Now I want to show you the work map. And I think it gets the input of IP, and I can go it, let's say, source IP address. And yes, it directly created the geolocation of my current position. Let's save this one as well. Let's say map. Yeah, we keep on adding widgets, but of course it doesn't look good, right? So let's edit this and take this on the right side. Let's go. Just make it bigger. Just make it bigger. Make this one bigger as well. So you see how easy it is, just drag and drop. And let's edit this one. Let's edit style. Let's zoom in a bit. Perfect. So you can see, okay, I have something in the United States, I have something in Istanbul, etc. So boom, we have a dashboard. Of course, you can dig in more details. You can create many guards here, many different charts, or just labels, text, anything you want. And also you can just share it. It's so easy to do. So this was my first demo here. So you can create everything, you can create alerts. And now I want to show you about collecting logs from Nginx. I want to go back to my AWS account and let's go to EC2. Let's go to running instances. Yeah, I have created an EC2 server, just Ubuntu 20.04 LTS, and I have not installed anything at all. I just put an HTML page, and let's see if it's working. I just spin it right before the webinar. Yeah, it works. Cool. And now I want to jump into the server and configure my file bit so I can pump all the logs to the Humio. To be able to do this, I want to connect to this instance. Oops. Let's go here. Okay, as you can see, this is the first time we're jumping in. Okay, let's jump to sudo. Okay, perfect. Let's first check if I already have FileBit here. I don't have it, so we need to install. Let's use apt install FileBit. Yep, it's done. Let's check if it's here. Yep, it's here. And we can check the version of it. Okay, we have 770. Cool. And I want to jump into the FileBit folder. I want to show you the files. And it has fields, reference, and config files with modules folder. You can see all the details of installation and configuration on Humio and on Elastic web page. And filebit.yaml is the configuration file of FileBit, and I'm going to modify it so that we can send logs to our Humio. Filebit.yaml. Okay, so this is a proper YAML file, and it's the default one. It has many lines there, but all I'm interested in with the inputs and the outputs. Input stands for the files that I'm going to monitor with FileBit, and output stands for the target that I want to send logs. Okay. So I want to modify here. So okay, this is FileBit inputs. I'm going to monitor log types, and of course I have to enable this. And this is the path that I tell FileBit to monitor. I know that Nginx logs are here, so FileBit will monitor var log Nginx and all the log files under that. Let's save it. I can get rid of this one. Okay, so guys, as a best practice, it's always better to add your encoding. Otherwise, it can be a nightmare. So I'm going to use UTF-8. And I think that should be all for the input. Now, I have to configure the output. I'm scrolling down, I'm skipping all the default values. Yeah, outputs are here. Okay, as I told you guys before, FileBit is an Elastic tool, so by design, it looks for an Elasticsearch instance. So I want to change here, of course. Let's delete this. So HTTPS, all you need to do is to type your Humio server here. I'm using the SaaS version, which is cloud.humio.com. And there's a trick here. I have to specify the port explicitly, because you may be thinking, okay, you already defined HTTPS. Why do you still need to define the port 443? By default, FileBit adds the 9200 port, which is default Elasticsearch port, and we define that 443 so that it won't add this. And I'm sending this to the Elastic Bulk endpoint of Humio, which is API, the current version, and I'm going to do an ingest operation, and it's Elastic Bulk endpoint. Okay, so all right, I have a problem of the indentation here. Let me fix it. I think it has to be like that. Yeah. And also, normally FileBit works with username and password authentication. But I only have API token, as you know. So I'll specify username as well. But I can just give it anything. I'm just calling it Kloya, okay? Because we won't use it. The important part is the password part. The password is actually our ingest token. So I'm going back to my Humio account. I'm going back to settings. I'm going back to API tokens, and I want to create a new one. I'm going with Nginx this time. And I assign the access log parser. So Humio will know that those are the access logs. Let's copy this one. Let's go back to terminal and paste this as a password. I think that should be enough for that. Let's save this. So now we have configured our input and we have configured our output. So I think that should be it, honestly. Let's check the status of FileBit. It's loaded but inactive. Perfectly fine for us. Let's enable it first. Cool, and let's start it. So when we start it, I honestly expect it to monitor the log file and send it to Humio. Let's check back the status. Oh, we have a problem. Does it say? Elastic client expects item response object. Okay, let's see our output configuration. HTTPS cloud.humio.com 443 API version 1 ingest Elastic Bulk. That should be fine. Username Kloya and password is this. Okay, let's double check if this works fine, because normally Elastic introduces himself like Elastic. Yeah, Humio bulk ingest endpoint. This looks correct. And protocol HTTPS. Okay. Username Kloya, password, and I think it looks good, to be honest. Let's check back status again. Okay, I think now it's fine. And also we can check the logs here with journal CTL. Let's check FileBit. Let's tell it. Okay, it monitors. I think it looks good. Maybe it was just a temporary thing. Let's go back to Humio and go back to search. And now I want to show you the data sources. When you go to data sources, you can see all the sources tagged by the parser here with type. Because you remember we've selected the access log here and JS for JSON for the ones from the AWS. And it also coming from Lambda, as you can see. And I can search by this type as well. So I want to go back to search and I want to say type access log. This should gives me all the logs from Nginx. And yep, we can get it. You can see all the logs here. And now what I want to do is, let's say, take the last minute live queries and let's browse it. We should see some logs over there. Of course, this is based on the file bits monitoring interval, but because of I hard refresh, we can see the GET request for root, and it's 200. And we can see the favicon, which is 404, because it absolutely makes sense because I haven't configured any favicons. And now the last thing I want to show you is to create an alert. For this, I click on the alerts on the top menu. I go into notifiers, and let's check. Let's create a new notifier. So these are the predefined integrations for the notifications. You can directly send an email. And you can use the Opsgenie, PagerDuty, or VictorOps, or you can directly send your Slack a message, or you can use a webhook. So that means you can do literally whatever you want. I'm going to use an email right now to make it easier. So let's call it email notifier. And I want to send it to myself. Of course, you can just customize all the template and subject here. Okay, I created a notifier. Now I want to create an alert. I click on new alert. When you click on new alert, it takes you to the search page again. And it asks you to create your query. So I want to get the access logs. Perfect. And I want to do this in the last minute. If you have realized, alert queries are always live. And I want to get the status code of 404s. First, let's double check if it works. Get the last 30 minutes. Yeah, our query works. It gets all the 404s, as you can see. I want to get the 404s in the last minute. Let's give it a name. Let's say 404 found. I'll use the email notifier. And I want to get this alert in the 1 minute frequency. So I click on create alert. So now I have an alert. Now all I need to do is to go back here and browse /hello, which should be 404. And if I go back, yep, I see the 404 request here. And right away, I expect to receive an email. Let's go to my inbox and let's refresh it. Yeah, I have an email from Humio. Humio alert 404 found. This is the alert name. If you go in details, you can see that 404 found alert is triggered. And it happened in that time. And this is the result of your query. And this is your query. And you can just click and go to see the details. So this is all I want to show you guys for now. And I want to go back here, if I may. And I think if you have any questions, I've been more than to answer.
Yeah, hi. Thanks for that, Honor. So there's a couple of questions. So a very good question here. One would be, apart from pricing, why would someone be interested in Humio versus Splunk in terms of specific cases? So Honor or James, if you want to answer that one, that's a great question.
Yeah, James, would you like to go, or I can answer? How would you like?
Yeah, I can talk about that a little bit. So just to quickly introduce myself, James Mountfield. I'm the principal solution architect for Humio in EMEA. There's really a couple of factors to it. So the primary thing to consider is essentially the value that you get from operating a tool like Humio or Splunk. Humio has a very impressive total cost of ownership benefit over something like Splunk. So not only do we offer much more reasonable licensing, but we've seen with all our customers a significant decrease in the infrastructure footprint required to run the service. Typically, that's anywhere from 60 to 80% less infrastructure in comparison to Splunk. And there shouldn't be any sort of consideration that you're running less of a service. At the same time as significantly reducing that infrastructure, we actually offer significantly improved search performance. You now have opportunities to retain data for longer and actually bring in more data sources. So all in all, your outgoing expenditure for operating the service decreases significantly, and you can actually get a lot more value out of the data that you hold within your organization. So those two things combined are extremely compelling. And we've got a fair few features and capabilities in the platform that Splunk can't offer. When you start looking at things like monitoring really significant numbers of conditions across your data set, you're not bound anymore by the number of CPUs or threads that you can operate. We have people running many thousand background alerts looking for every part of the compliance and security picture that's relevant for them. So to sum it up, you can do a lot more, a lot faster, with a lot less resource and a lot less money.
And I would just, thanks, James. I would just cap that off by saying it's not always a question of Humio or a SIEM. Obviously with SIEMs you get kind of 1,000 out of the box reports, alerts, workflow, potentially things like that as well, or get into SOAR territory. And if that's your requirement, you probably want a SIEM anyway. Humio could sit alongside that and take not only the security data but all of your logging data for general purpose logging as well. So it obviously depends on your specific use case. Some folks really like SIEM, but if you're going beyond SIEM to things like threat hunting or DevSecOps, again, Humio is more power and speed, and the fact that all of the data is stored in Humio, as much as you need for all of that retention, means that you're able to really dig down to things like advanced persistent threats and stuff, where you get the real-time alerts, but draw down to maybe a year's worth of old data to find that data, or drill into the PCAP or Windows login, stuff that's really, really noisy and really hard to store at scale because it's just so big. But Humio can kind of process that very cost effectively as well. But that was a great question. Thanks for that. We'll have a look. A few more questions in here. So yeah, we talked about some scalability using Humio for security. Is there an on-premise option? So we have compliance concerns with using a SaaS offering. I don't know if that was covered in the presentation. Answer that question.
Yep, definitely. We have option to install it on-prem and cover all the regulations.
Great. We have a .NET stack currently with a custom-built logging solution. We are refactoring much of our stack to be AWS Cloud Native, and we are currently using our logging solution for our UI and backend process. Would we be able to try Humio or run it in tandem to see how it works in comparison to what we have now?
Yep, definitely. They can give Humio a go. It's so easy to test it with the SaaS account, as we just showed it, or it works very well with the .NET clients. Actually, it doesn't care about the technology that you're using, honestly. But I definitely think that, and I can definitely suggest give it a go.
Great, thanks. I'm not really sure about this question. How do you measure memory metrics, auto scaling with memory usage? Not quite sure I get that as a question, but if that makes sense to either of you guys, feel free to answer it.
Yeah, I can probably.
Yeah,
Thanks. So the way I understand that question is memory metrics on the Humio cluster itself. So there's a few different ways of deploying and operating Humio. So you can do what we would call like a bare metal style install, which is installed onto virtual machines or public cloud appliances, that sort of thing. And generally speaking, the Humio application actually is only really allocated 10 to 20% of the memory available on those nodes. So where we advocate having a large amount of RAM available, that's really for operating system caches, file cache. So that's not a huge problem. If on the other hand you want to run a cluster that's a bit leaner, maybe is one way of putting it, you can deploy Humio in Kubernetes, for example, and set that to be auto-scaling based on the demand that's placed on the cluster. So you have a huge amount of flexibility in the way that you deploy Humio, what sort of infrastructure you allocate to it, and ultimately you're going to just see different levels of performance rather than it will or will not work. So hopefully that answers the question. I think that's my interpretation of that question.
Great, thanks. What would you consider to be your features that leave the competitors in the dust? I like that question. It's a good one.
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
So the features that leave our competitors in the dust, to me, it really comes down to the performance of the application. There's a fun story from when I was actually recruited into Humio. I pretty much accused my now boss of fabricating the demo because it was so unbelievable based on what I had been used to from working with tools like Splunk and Elastic, in terms of the speed with which you could query data, historical data, and the speed with which you could reparse and reinterpret that data. Moving from queries that I was used to taking 40 minutes to run, going down to 5 or 6 seconds to run. It's just unbelievable performance from the platform.
Great, thank you. There's one question here. So how do you compare with VMware Log Insights? I mean, I don't really want to go into a big feature function. It's not one I'm really familiar with. It looks like it has some specific VMware features though, but I don't know, James, if you have any color to offer that. I mean, we're happy to probably answer that after this, conversation, understand what you're using it for, understand what your requirements are really, and then, see how that maps into what Humio has, right? It always comes down to your own specific requirements, and then, what benefits Humio has that aligns with that really. There's another question here. I think it's a kind of a question, but or maybe a statement. So the current stack is GraphQL API on AWS AppSync, resolvers written in TypeScript on AWS Lambda, RES database, SNS, S3, all logs written to CloudWatch. There's no actual question in that, but any thoughts on that architecture? How we can log that in Humio, for example, or do we replace parts of that? Quite a lot in there to digest, I take, from a word.
Yeah. Go on. No, I've done a few. Here we go.
Yeah, we can definitely use the same architecture with using CloudTrail here, because we were also using the CloudWatch and log groups over there. So they can do the same thing, and they can just subscribe to the log groups, and using a Lambda function, they can pump this to Humio. They don't have to replace anything at all. They can keep on using CloudWatch and everything they have right now.
Great, thank you for that. Any other questions? We're coming up to time now. So any of the questions that we've got as we've got the presenters on? If not, this will be recorded and there'll be a link sent out to recording after that. We'll also draw the winner for the DAS keyboard as well and send that to the winner as well. So good luck everyone on that. But if there's no more questions, and I don't think there is, then I'd like to thank Honor and James and thank everyone for attending today's workshop. Hope you found it useful. I certainly did. And if you get any follow-up questions, please send them to us at events@humio.com. That's events@humio.com, and we'll be sending an email in the next 2 to 3 days with business days with recording the presentation. But with that, have a good evening or night, afternoon, and thanks for your time. Appreciate it today.
Yeah, thank you very much.